spectacles of cold visitors from space and the evil of man. On a bright May afternoon, a peculiar dense fog rolls onto land from the Atlantic Ocean. Like a ghostly veil, the mist slowly covers the town. "5 miles from town, at the very edge of the coast, looms an archaic radar tower. A rusted giant with a long history. Approximately 120 miles east of New York City rests the small and remote town of Montauk. Its name was inherited from the Montaukett Indians, who were settlers of the land for over 4,000 years. From as far back as the Revolutionary War, it was a place of interest for military forces. Montauk has equally attracted vacationers. In the summer, it's a thriving village, with barely a vacancy in its oceanfront hotels and resorts. In the winter, it's nearly a ghost town. A place of comfort and happiness for most who visit, but there are others who claim that Montauk is the place where unimaginable horrors occurred. Above the seemingly perfect American small town lurks the AN/FPS 35 radar tower, a 70-ton relic of United States Air Force history. On official record, Camp Hero, which was originally Fort Hero, was built in 1942. It was primarily used by the U.S. Air Force during the Second World War. Time seems to stand still for those who spend years of their lives investigating the legends of Camp Hero. What might begin as a hobbyist's archaeological dig could gradually become an unhealthy obsession. For Christopher Garetano, half a decade of Montauk analysis became an all-consuming essay.
If you should ever decide to research the legends of Camp Hero, there are two things that you'll notice shortly after you begin. The first is that both the clock and calendar will gradually lose their meaning as you go along. The second is that there's a very fine line between fairy tales and fact. I can tell you now that in the beginning I had no clue of what I was really getting myself into. I thought it would be a simple investigation into one of Earth's lesser-known paranormal conspiracy theories. It wasn't until about a year or so into the project that I realized I was terribly wrong. I'll elaborate on this throughout the movie. Like most of you, my attraction to the mysteries of the unknown began when I was a kid. I read every book on the subject that I can get my hands on, and I watched every movie. I also had this reoccurring dream of an alien spacecraft crash landing in the woods behind my childhood home. In my waking hours, I would pretend that the neighborhood was quarantined, so that the wreckage could be concealed by secret government agents. I had a wild imagination as a kid, and I was infamous in my neighborhood for telling stories, one of which was of a voluptuous space woman appearing in my backyard and then quickly disappearing. When I decided to make this movie, I entered with that same childhood fascination. A strange tale of Nazi scientists government black operations and extraterrestrial horrors is right up my alley. But in this case, there are several men who claim that it's all true. And there are thousands of followers around the world who hold a strong allegiance to their claims. I read everything there was to read about the project, but it was usually biased, either immediately declaring it a hoax or supporting the stories without any discretion. My first instinct to seek some kind of evidence naturally pointed towards Camp Hero. Like any proper investigation, before a conclusion is drawn, my goal was to gather as much first-hand information as possible. The basic tools of the trade were a combination of my movie-making equipment and essential devices for urban exploration. I wasn't sure what I was going to find at Camp Hero. I was hoping that somewhere, deep inside this now-defunct Air Force relic, the proverbial ghosts of the Montauk Project would speak to me. I also decided to ask an old friend of mine to join me on a good deal of this journey. I met Eric Swanson back in film school, and he was the person who first introduced me to the Montauk Legends in 1998. We share a common interest in the mysteries of the world, and Eric is a grounded person with a healthy amount of skepticism. These are crucial traits to possess when investigating a legend like the Montauk Project.
Eric Swanson is an artist residing in New York City. His work, as Eric proposes, is a statement against corruption and lies.
Unfortunately, there's a good deal of people who don't mistrust the government. I think that, mistrust in the government is a completely rational behavior, and I encourage it. No one should trust the government. Throughout history, numerous governments have abused their power, have deceived their, the citizens at large, and it's absurd for any government or any population on the planet today to assume that their government is any different. Anytime there's a large news event, you get all sorts of people on the internet who, they don't just ask questions, they jump to conclusions that are, in my opinion, most of the time wildly imaginative and have no basis in fact.
We first met with Camp Hero researcher and Montauk local, Mr. Paul Fagan. He spent several years observing and documenting every accessible inch of the base, and he knew ways for us to examine locations that were otherwise difficult to reach.
Don't do anything illegal. Beware of the eagle that's right in the middle of your back. Don't be illegal.
One of the more interesting things on the exterior surface were a good number of entrances to the underground. Paul claimed that most of them once led to a large and elaborate tunnel system. We couldn't confirm this information, as all of them were either flooded with water or deliberately sealed with cement.
I think it went into this bunker itself.
The holy grail of this expedition was the Sage radar tower. Paul knew a way for us to get inside, and as I expected, most of the interior was falling apart. Each level was accessible by staircase. However, the stairs didn't lead to a lower level or basement, and there was clearly an elevator shaft that went down.
I got to see where you begin. I got to see your ID, my friend. Every time I go to the store.
There were remnants of obsolete Air Force technology on every level. The place was a historical catacomb, one part military ghost and combination haven for urban explorers and bored teenagers.
Take the face off this, leave the difference in the numbers.
After searching for the better part of an hour, we heard voices coming from a lower level.
You heard that, right?
The tower, by law, was off limits, so to avoid an encounter with the authorities, we left in a hurry. The last thing I wanted was to be arrested on the first day of my investigation. I can't tell you that my singular purpose in this investigation was to prove that the Montauk experiments actually happened. I was searching for some kind of clue that would lead us to evidence that would either support or debunk the many tales that came from this place. Finding evidence is certainly not as easy as some might lead you to believe, and I wasn't interested in wasting time. I chose to avoid several things during my investigation, one of which was the Air Force. I certainly don't believe that the Air Force would confess to running the Montauk Project or any other elaborate experiment that they've been accused of conducting. Many have naively suggested that I should break ground at Camp Hero for the purpose of proving the existence of the underground base. Let's say there was a secret base down there. Considering that it's top secret government property, I don't think I would get very far without a few dangerous obstacles.